Spencer family shattered. Electra's shocking pregnancy changes everything and the glamorous yet emotionally unpredictable world of the bold and the beautiful. No family reproach ever stays buried for long. And this time the Spencer dynasty is rocked to its veritably core when Electra's shocking gestation sends shockwaves through Los Angeles. What begins as a quiet, pulsing concession snappily escalates into a full-scale emotional war that threatens to shatter long-standing alliances, renew old injuries, and review the very future of the Spencer name. The disclosure unfolds sluggishly, nearly sorrowfully, as Electra wrestles with fear, mistrustfulness, and the crushing weight of what her news will mean, not just for herself, but for the important family she has come entangled with. When she eventually utters the words that change everything, the room seems to stop breathing. The air grows thick with unbelief, and in that suspended moment, it becomes clear that nothing will ever be the same again. At the center of the storm stands Bill Spencer Jr., the redoubtable primogenitor whose life has been defined by control, ambition, and an unyielding desire to cover his heritage. Bill has survived commercial appropriations, romantic backstabbings, and family insurrections, but this disclosure strikes at a more vulnerable place. The possibility that a new life is entering the Spencer route forces him to defy not only questions of maternity and responsibility, but also his own complicated history as a father. His mind races through scripts, dishonors splashed across captions, boardroom whispers, rivals circling like harpies, but beneath the calculating surface lies commodity far more particular fear. Fear of losing control, fear of repeating once miscalculations, and maybe indeed fear of stopgap. The pressure intensifies when Katie Logan learns of Electra's gestation. Katie, who has fought fiercely to maintain stability for her son, and for herself amid Bill's frequently chaotic opinions, feels blindsided. Her response isn't simply covetousness or dubitation. It's the gut position fear of a woman who has spent times navigating heartache and eventually allowed. She had set up solid ground. She questions timing, circumstances, and overall trust. Is this gestation the result of a transitory lapse in judgment, or does it signal commodity deeper and further enduring? Katie's struggle is internal as much as external. She wants to respond with grace and maturity, yet she cannot silence the voice inside that warns her she may formally again be standing on the edge of emotional ruin. Electra, meanwhile, is far from the manipulative schemer some might paint her to be. In this plot, she's portrayed as layered and sorrowfully mortal. Her gestation isn't a calculated move, but an unanticipated reality that forces her to grow up overnight. She grapples with practical fears, how her life will change, how the child will be entered, but also with moral and emotional dilemmas. Does she fight for a place within the Spencer family? Or does she cover herself and her future child by keeping a safe distance from their turbulent world? The vulnerability in her eyes during competitions reveals a youthful woman who no way intended to enkindle a family war yet refuses to be lowered for carrying a life that deserves acknowledgement. As whispers ripple through the Spencer services, the commercial dimension adds another subcast of complexity. Spencer Publications has always been as much a character in the drama as any existent, emblematizing power, influence, and character. Investors begin to mutter, tabloids catch the scent of reproach, and challengers still delight the insecurity. Bill's professional instincts disaccord with his particular fermentation. He knows that decisive action is necessary to maintain authority, yet every decision pitfalls alienating someone he loves. The boardroom becomes a battlefield where particular commitment and public image collide. The youngest generation of the Spencer clan isn't vulnerable to the fallout. Questions of heritage, legality, and unborn leadership face nearly incontinently. Old rivalries flare over, and siblings who formerly stood united find themselves divided over how to respond. Some argue for compassion and addition, averring that a child should no way bear the burden of adult miscalculations. Others view the gestation as a strategic trouble, an implicit shift in power that could alter the family scale ever. The debates grow hot, exposing precariousness that have long coddled beneath polished surfaces. What makes this plot particularly gripping is its emotional literalism. Rather than counting solely on melodramatic twists, the narrative explores the quiet, intimate moments that follow seismic exposures. There are insomniac nights where characters gawk at ceilings, replaying exchanges and imagining futures that suddenly feel uncertain. There are hushed phone calls filled with half-spoken fears. There are unanticipated gestures of kindness, a hand resting gently on a shoulder, a rumored assurance that hint at the possibility of mending indeed amid chaos. Katie's trip becomes one of the most compelling bends. Torn between tone preservation and empathy, she confronts Bill in scenes charged with raw honesty. She demands translucency, refusing to be pacified by vague solace. Yet in private moments, she also confronts her own vulnerability. She knows what it feels like to fight for a child's well-being in a complicated family. Her internal conflict humanizes her response, precluding it from slipping into one-dimensional enmity. Observers see a woman scuffling with pride, pain, and the desire to cover what she holds dear. Bill's metamorphosis is inversely nuanced. For maybe the first time in a long while, he's forced to hear further than he speaks. The iron-conscious Napoleon must grapple with emotional responsibility. Scenes in which he stands alone in his office, gaping out over the Los Angeles skyline, emphasize the weight of heritage. He erected an conglomerate through sheer force of will, but he cannot command matters of the heart with the same authority. The gestation compels him to review what true strength looks like. Is it domination and control, or is it responsibility and compassion? Electra's bond with the future child becomes a quiet anchor in the narrative. In tender moments she speaks vocally about hopes and dreams, visioning a future free from bitterness. These scenes discrepancy sprucely with the explosive competitions that dominate family gatherings. They remind observers that at the center of the storm is an innocent life that has yet to take its first breath. The moral stakes rise as characters begin to realize that their choices will shape not only their own futures, but that of a child who deserves stability and love. Alliances shift in surprising ways. Characters who formerly disaccorded find common ground, united by concern for the baby's weal. Others who appear probative reveal ulterior motives. The shifting dynamics keep the plot changeable, reflecting the complex web of connections that defines the show. No bone remains untouched. Indeed, supplemental numbers feel the tumblers as the Spencer family recalibrates. Public exposure looms as a constant trouble. In a world where reports can be destroyed overnight, the threat of captions amplifies every private argument. Bill's instinct is to control the narrative before it controls him, yet doing so may bear admitting trueness he'd rather keep retired. The pressure between secretiveness and translucency drives numerous of the occurrences, erecting suspension as observers wonder whether the news will explode into the public sphere. As the weeks unfold, the original shock gives way to deeper reflection. Characters begin to ask themselves hard questions about remission, responsibility, and what it truly means to be family. The gestation becomes further than a reproach, it becomes a catalyst for growth. Long-standing resentments are vented, justifications are offered, and in some cases, conditional islands are rebuilt. The possibility of redemption hangs in the air, fragile yet real. Eventually, the plot underscores why the bold and the beautiful has endured for decades. It weaves high-stakes drama with emotional authenticity, reminding observers that indeed in a world of wealth and glamour, the most important conflicts are those of the heart. Electra's shocking gestation doesn't simply shatter the Spencer family, it forces them to defy who they are and who they wish to come. Whether the family emerges stronger or permanently fractured remains uncertain, but one verity is inarguable: the Spencer heritage will no way look the same again. The news of Electra's gestation spreads through the Spencer menage like campfire, kindling pressures that had long been stewing just beneath the face. Every member of the family reacts else, reflecting the diversity of personalities and histories that have shaped the clan over decades. Some respond with spontaneous defensive instincts, while others reply with dubitation, covetousness, or strategic computation. What unites them each still is the inarguable consummation that the life growing inside Electra is no longer just her own concern, it is a force that could review alliances, commitment, and the veritably balance of power within the Spencer conglomerate. At the heart of the family fermentation is the delicate dynamic between Electra and her mama. This relationship, formerly putatively imperturbable, now faces its sternest test. Her mama, torn between supporting her son and stewing for the character of the family, vacillates between empathy and stern admonition. Each discussion becomes a highline act of tactfulness, as Electra learns to assert herself with clarity and courage, while esteeming the emotional boundaries of those around her. This nuanced interplay adds layers to the plot, reminding observers that indeed in the world of opulent palaces and high-powered boardrooms, family connections are fragile and frequently precarious. Meanwhile, Bill Spencer Jr., as ever, embodies the duality of public power and private vulnerability. To the outside world, he remains the calculating Napoleon, the man who has erected a conglomerate from sheer will and determination. Yet within the walls of his home, he confronts fears that have been largely buried beneath decades of ambition. The prospect of a new child in the family forces him to defy his own history as a father, including once mistakes and the connections he has neglected in pursuit of wealth and control. Scenes of Bill pacing alone in his office, sometimes breaking to touch a framed snap of his being children, convey a silent reckoning that's as gripping as any dramatic battle. Katie Logan, too, finds herself navigating an emotional minefield. Her relationship with Bill, always complex, is tested to its limits as she grapples with passions of instability and treason. While her love for him is genuine, the disclosure of Electra's gestation forces her to rethink the nature of trust and cooperation in their marriage. The show adroitly portrays her inner conflict through intimate scenes that reveal her study process, her quiet moments of reflection, her rumored exchanges with cronies, and her attempts to maintain countenance in family meetings where pressure runs high. Katie's bow emphasizes the emotional literalism that has long been a hallmark of the series, showing that indeed strong, confident individualities are susceptible to mistrustfulness and fear when faced with life-altering news. The commercial ramifications of Electra's gestation are inversely significant. Spencer Publications, formerly a symbol of the family's power and influence, becomes an exemplification of the larger societal pressures at play. The company's board is replete with enterprise, as directors and stakeholders debate the implicit impact on the company's image and stability. Rival media outlets catch wind of the story, and the trouble of reproach looms large, adding a fresh subcast of pressure to every scene. Bill's leadership is tested not just in his particular life, but in his capability to manage a public conglomerate while scuffling with intensively private matters. This duality of particular and professional stakes creates a narrative uproariousness that keeps observers deeply invested. Electra herself navigates the story with a mix of vulnerability and adaptability. Far from being an unresistant character, she laboriously grapples with the challenges posed by her gestation, considering not only her immediate future, but also the long-term counteraccusations for her child. In poignant moments, she speaks directly to her future baby, revealing expedients, fears, and dreams that reverberate with observers on a universal position. Her trip becomes a contemplation on the strength needed to face unanticipated challenges, emphasizing the humanity that anchors the show's more sensational plotlines. Meanwhile, the youngest generation of the Spencer family reacts with a admixture of curiosity, apprehension, and tone interest. Questions about heritage, legality, and domestic responsibility dominate exchanges, occasionally discovering over into bitter arguments that expose long-standing grievances. Siblings who formerly maintained a united front now find themselves at odds over how to respond to Electra's news. The performing pressure illustrates the fragile balance of trust within families where particular ambition and fidelity are frequently intertwined. The story also explores the social ramifications of the gestation. In a world where appearances and character are consummate, the family must consider how their private lives cross with public perception. Rumors swirl in high society circles, gossip columns presume endlessly, and musketeers and familiarity take sides, occasionally with tone-serving motives. These societal pressures amplify the stakes, showing how private opinions can ripple outward, affecting not just the immediate family but the broader social ecosystem in which they operate. In parallel, the show examines the ethical and moral confines of the unfolding drama. Characters are forced to consider questions of responsibility, fairness, and justice as they navigate the complex web of connections affected by the gestation. Scenes featuring heated debates, emotional competitions, and quiet reflections punctuate the characters' evolving moral compasses, emphasizing that choices made in moments of extremity can have continuing consequences. Romantic pressures also consolidate, particularly as old dears and undetermined passions resurface. Bill's once connections are brought into sharper focus as he navigates his current scores and solicitations, while other family members defy moping feelings that complicate their capability to act objectively. These cutting stories produce a shade of connected mortal jests, buttressing the idea that the Spencer family's world is as emotionally intricate as it's socially complex. As the occurrences progress, Electra's gestation becomes a catalyst for conciliation, battle, and metamorphosis. Characters who originally reply with wrathfulness or fear gradationally begin to review their positions, urged by empathy, tone reflection, or the simple recognition that the child is innocent in all of the adult conflict. In these moments, the show highlights the enduring themes of remission and domestic bonds, suggesting that indeed amid chaos, growth and mending are possible. The pressure between secretiveness and disclosure drives much of the plot. Electra grapples with the decision of when and how to expose her gestation to different family members, importing implicit consequences against her desire for honesty. Each choice carries emotional and strategic weight, affecting connections, power dynamics, and individual reports. These opinions are portrayed with scrupulous attention to detail, emphasizing the cerebral literalism that has come a hand of the series. The show also delves into the interplay of power and vulnerability. Bill's control over the family and company is challenged in subtle ways, as Electra's news forces him to consider perspectives beyond his own. Katie's vulnerability becomes a source of strength, as she navigates her feelings and lawyers for her family. Electra's own vulnerability underscores her courage, as she faces an uncertain future with adaptability and determination. Together, these stories emphasize the nuanced ways in which power and vulnerability attend in mortal connections. The narrative structure of this bout emphasizes both immediate drama and long-term counteraccusations. Each occasion builds pressure through precisely offered competitions, intimate reflections, and unanticipated twists. Plots involving other characters, musketeers, extended family, and associates interweave seamlessly with the central plot, creating a rich, multi-layered viewing experience. These interconnections support the sense that the Spencer family exists within a dynamic, living world, where every action has ripple goods that impact the broader narrative geography. Throughout the plot, the emotional stakes remain high. Moments of quiet tender-heartedness are interspersed with explosive arguments, reflecting the changeable nature of real-life family dynamics. Characters struggle with clashing feelings, occasionally acting impulsively, occasionally with careful deliberation. The show's attention to emotional authenticity ensures that indeed the most dramatic plot developments feel predicated in character psychology, making the followership invested in both the immediate issues and the character's longer-term growth. Eventually, Electra's gestation serves as a narrative fulcrum, balancing the pressure between chaos and resolution, secretiveness and disclosure, vulnerability and strength. It forces the Spencer family and the followership to defy uncomfortable trueness, challenge hypotheticals, and consider the nature of love, fidelity, and responsibility. As each occasion unfolds, observers are drawn into a world that's contemporaneously glamorous and intensively mortal, where the stakes are high, the feelings raw, and the consequences lasting. Indeed, as the immediate drama reaches a top, the plot leaves room for reflection. Characters begin to question what heritage truly means, how family ties are forged, and what liabilities accompany new life. The followership substantiations not just the spectacle of cleaner pieces drama, but the deeper disquisition of mortal experience, the interplay of stopgap, fear, ambition, and love that defines the Spencer family and, by extension, the mortal condition. By the time this bout reaches its climax, the Spencer family is irrevocably changed. Alliances have shifted, connections have been tested, and characters have grown in unanticipated ways. Electra emerges as a figure of adaptability and moral strength, while Bill and Katie defy new confines of their individualities as parents, mates, and family members. The broader social and commercial counteraccusations of the gestation continue to unfold, icing that the plot resonates far beyond the immediate shock of the disclosure. In conclusion, this extensive narrative, rich in emotional complexity, realistic interpersonal dynamics, and high-stakes drama, demonstrates why The Bold and the Beautiful has remained a cherished chief of American TV for decades. Electra's shocking gestation is further than a sensational plot twist. It's a lens through which observers can explore the complications of mortal connections, the challenges of navigating family and power, and the continuing capacity for growth, remission, and adaptability. The Spencer family may be shaken, but the plot affirms that indeed in the midst of bouleversement, stopgap, love, and the possibility of metamorphosis endure.